Good evening, Vasters. Puppeteer here again. Ready for another live tutorial. Hopefully everything's all running nice and smooth. I've got the chat window up, so if you've got any questions while we're going through this, please let me know. Today is Wednesday, the 3rd of January 2013. Happy New Year to all you guys out there. Don't really have much to say at the moment. I left a little video up on the Ustream just with a little bit of the plans of the coming year. And yeah, look, I want to try and do some sort of tutorial every couple of weeks, just depending on how life treats me and what other things come out of left field. So look, I may be able to do it, I may not be able to do it. I'll probably be able to get a few done in the next few weeks. My wife is away with the kids at the moment. She is up with her parents right up north of our wonderful country of Australia. And yeah, so I've basically got less to do in the evening, so all good for you guys. You could probably get a little bit more of me than you otherwise would. Anyway, what the topic of today is, we're going to go through and have a look at the arpeggios in the PC3. And we're going to try and go through and demystify a few of the different bits and pieces within the A, within setup, and B, within the setup editor itself, and some of the options that are around with the arpeggiator pages. A lot of this is actually going to be talking to. I've prepared some slides, so a lot of what we're going to cover is actually going to be covered in the slides, and I'm going to upload these to Kunker for you guys to have a look at later. And go through at your own pace. The manual is pretty good in regards to what's on. In regards to the arpeggiator page, make sure you get the latest version of the manual though, because the version before, the version 1, is the operating system has changed, and the pages that the arpeggiator appears on are different now to what they used to be. It's probably a little bit easier now. There's a few more options. But we're going to try and go through all of the options in at least some depth today. If you've got any questions, just stop me, stick up a comment, let me know. Yeah, just let me know what you want to know, or if I need to go into anything in any more detail. Okay, so look, I guess we're going to I'll cover a little bit about the arpeggiators themselves and where you find them, and what the capabilities of the PC3 are in terms of the thing. I'm just going to bring this camera down a little bit. Okay. That's a little bit better. Okay, so on the PC3, all the arpeggios are found in setup mode. Okay, there's no arpeggios in program mode unless you change where the default setup. Unless you change the default setup. So what I've done on my one, for example, is I've enabled the arpeggio. It's just a single loop up, and I've just got the arpeggiator switches on and off, so I can use it in program mode all the time. So that if you want to do that, it's really quite easy to do. But its setup mode is where they're programmed. You can't do any programming of the arpeggios from within program mode. Okay, now the PC3 has got it's got an arpeggio on every zone within the setup, so you've got up to 16 arpeggios. And it can be expanded a little bit, because in the custom arpeggios that you can do with shift patterns and velocity patterns, you've actually got 2 arpeggios for each of them. One of them's a velocity one, and one's a shift pattern, and they can be different. Okay, so the arpeggios are very, very powerful on the PC3. They're a lot more powerful than a lot of other synths that I've used, certainly in the past. So we're going to go through some of the things that you can do with them, and I'm probably not going to talk too much about the creative uses. I'll mention a little bit about it, but I'm not going to go into any of the advanced stuff. I really would love to get my bandmate over here and run through some of this stuff with you, because he's an absolute whiz with arpeggios, and he just really gets into the stuff that's on the PC3. He doesn't understand the operating system so much, but he really goes to town on the arpeggios. Okay, so let's just go. I'm going to go into the the setup editor now, and we're going to have a look at some of the pages. Okay, so the place that you find all of these is 3 pages that concern the arpeggio. The first one that you come across is the ARP switch. Okay, and that controls what the arpeggiator switch does. Okay, and the arpeggiator switch is to the left of the keyboard, just above the pitch wheel. Okay, and that you can use that to turn the ARP on and ARP off. And by default, it's set to do that. Okay, so you can see just here that it's set to do that. Okay, so the next pages are the ARP1 and ARP2 pages, and this is where all the programming for the arpeggios is done. Okay, so let's just go in and we're just going to have a quick look at these pages first of all, and then I'm going to go through and explain some of the parameters. So the first one is the active, and if you press the ARP button, you see that the arpeggiator comes on. So okay, nice and simple, and it turns off. So you can do that. The ARP, that is updated in real time as you press the ARP button. Okay, we've got the beats, which is how fast these go. So at the moment it's set on 16ths, but you can set it on 8ths. Or any sort of zone that you want. So it goes up to pretty quick. I'm not sure how quick it goes. Let's have a look. 1 3/84, which is pretty quick. So 16th notes is, if you're writing trance music, 16th notes are really good for arpeggios. Okay, so that's really the speed. That's how fast. So basically, what we're in at the moment is we've got semi-quavers between every step. So 16 notes per bar is what the arpeggiator says. Okay, you've got the shift pattern. We'll go into this in a little bit later, but the shift pattern is where you program your custom arpeggios. Shift limit, this is how far up the arpeggio goes before it does something, and that's what it does is specified by this limit option key. Okay, so basically what happens is if you hit this shift limit, it can do things like it can reflect around and it can play different notes, and this is where some of the really creative uses for the arpeggios come. So we'll go through these in a little bit. I haven't actually made up a slide to cover what these different limit options do, but it's covered really well in the manual, so I'll run through them basically just from the manual when I get to that. But basically it governs the behavior of what happens when your arpeggio moves up the keyboard and moves down the keyboard, and when it hits the limits. Okay, because you can do some funky stuff there. You can make it reflect, you can make it reset, and all sorts of stuff. Okay, you've got the shift amount, which is how much between each repeat. So if we do, let's just put 12 semitones in there. So if I play, I'm just going to play C chord now. Okay, so you can hear that it shifts it up by 12, or if I put, I can put 2 semitones. Okay, and you see it hit, when it got to 2 octaves, it hit that limit, and then it did something. So with these 4 options here, you can do, there's a lot of creativity that can be had just with those 4 things. Okay, so let's just leave that on 0 at the moment, so we haven't not shifting it at all. Okay, the play order is the order that they play is how you want the arpeggio to play the notes. Okay, so again, we're going to go through this a little bit in more detail, but there's quite a few options there. Velocity, again, you've got a lot of different options here. Oh, hang on, one of my computers is just logged out. Just give me a sec. I just got a stupid screensavers. I've just got to log back in. I need this one. It's got some reference material up there for me. Okay, but basically what you've got here is that you've got your velocity, so you can do whatever your first note you hold down is, or you can do it as played. So this is I'm going to do crescendo, so go C, E, G. Alright, and then you've got some of these other ones. You've got your whatever the last note is. You can control velocity with aftertouch, so Okay, the aftertouch is not quite as expressive as a K2000, but again, it's there as an option. You can assign aftertouch to something else, like a mod wheel if you wanted to. And then you've got some other controllers. You can have it fixed, which is often what happens with a lot of the dance music is you got fixed velocities, or you can then get into these velocity patterns, and this is where you can again customize it, and you can have different velocity patterns to what you've got shift patterns. Okay, and then you've got all these ones here, which are these are all presets, and essentially they are just patterns, but they've got they're already preset, so they've got different presets in them. And if you want to have a look at some of those, like Chimpies. Okay, so it's a little bit random. And then you've got these missed notes, so it'll miss some notes. Okay, just another way to sort of mix it up. Now you can program all of these yourselves. You can replicate all of these presets within the shift patterns if you want to. Okay, just a reminder, guys, if you've got any questions, just let us know in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them. Okay, so, and last one you've got is, so let's just go back and reset this to played, and the last one's duration. So this is, probably piano is not the best one to show it on, but if I put it at 20%, you hear it's very staccato, up until the duration. So that is as a percentage of whatever this is set to, your beats. So if your beats is set to quarter and you set your duration to 100%, each note will play for a quarter note. If you set that to 50% and your beats is on quarter notes, each note will play for an eighth note, but it will trigger on every quarter note. Okay, so I hope that makes sense about how the duration affects. Okay, so we're going to move on to the ARP 2 page now, and we're going to go through the latching in a bit, and the sync type. I've got some slides for those. So the three slides that I've got are the arpeggiator order, the latch mode, and the sync modes, because I think these are probably the bits that are the most confusing to people, and certainly the ones I get the most questions about. Okay, so we'll go through. Latch is how how's the best way to explain this? How notes are held. So if you, at the moment it's on keys, so when we press down the keys, it arpeggiates. Okay, but there's other things here, like if I put it on auto hold, when I press the keys and release them, okay, it keeps playing. So that's what they mean by latch. It keeps the arpeggiator on, or it controls the behavior of what happens when you let your fingers off the keys, essentially, is what the latch does. Okay, you've got sync 2, which is where the arpeggiator gets its sync signal from. Okay, so it can sync to, it can not be synced to anything else, or you can sync it to a riff or another arpeggio from a different zone, or you can sync it to song. Okay, low key and high key, that defines what range of the keyboard the arpeggiator is going to be active over. Now it's different to, if we just go back and have a look at the channel key velocity, you've got a low key and a high key here. Okay, these control how much of the keyboard is active, and then on the arpeggiator page, these control the section of the keyboard that is active for the arpeggio. So you can play outside these, outside the arpeggiator limits, and it'll just play normally. But if you trigger something inside the arpeggio, then it will arpeggiate those notes within that, depending on some of the other settings, which we'll get to in a sec. Okay, so commonly what you could do with this is, if you want to arpeggiate a bass chords, for example, you could set a zone of your keyboard, say from C3 downwards. It can be your bass region, and you can just have those arpeggiate on just on the bass, and then you can play treble. So, and that's probably a very common way that this sort of this will be used. Okay, glissando is pretty cool. What it does is it fills in all the notes in between. So that's the C to C, and okay, so it's chromatic. It does it in between each one. So a cool little feature, just adds a little bit more variety to your arpeggios. You've got your sync type, which I am going to go through and tell you about these sync types, but you've got, there's quite a few different ones here. In fact, there's some new ones here that aren't in the manual, but I know what they do anyway, so I'll go through them with you. And the number of beats is the last one, and that's the number of beats that you want in the arpeggio. It's important for some of the sync types because it defines how long your loop, basically how long your loop is going to be. Okay, so I'm going to go into a few of the into some of these slides that I've prepared, and I think we might just start off with the play order. Okay, so this is the Arp order. So there's a you should have something up on your screen now. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger so I can see it a bit better. Hopefully it doesn't interfere too much. Okay, so what we've got is, as we go through these play order, the first one you've got is played, okay, and that is the order in which your it's the order in which the notes are played. Okay, so it starts off. So if you play the C, E, and G, and you play them in that order, it will use that as your arpeggiator order. Okay, so, or you can do, I'll do a C, G, E, for example, and then I'll add a couple more in. I'll add a G and an E above it. Okay, so that's the order that you push the notes down in, and when you add new notes to it, depending on your latch mode, that they'll get incorporated into the arpeggio. Okay, so the next one you've got upwards, and that's the first one that you've got up above there, which is basically it's just going to play them C, E, G. So for all these, I've just assumed it's a C, E, G, so it just plays it up. And that's what that sounds like. The next one is downwards, which is the opposite. Starts with the G and works its way back down. So, okay, you've then got up down, and what this does is it goes from the C up to the G and then back to the C. So quite simply, I'll just play. I'll just double that chord. So. Okay, so you can hear it just goes up and down. So it's basically a combination of up and down. The next one you've got is up down repeat, and what this does is it doubles the first and the last note. Okay, so the top and the bottom note. So if we play this again, okay, you can hear that the C and the G have been doubled in that. Okay, the next one that we've got is random, and so we're going across to the right here, so away from reading musical notes. But random, it's a purely random arpeggio. So it will basically, for every note that it plays, it selects out of the current notes and then just plays a random note. So you can get repeated notes, you can get them jumping all over the place. So we'll just play quickly and you'll have a listen to this. Okay, the next one's also a random type thing. It's called shuffle. The difference with shuffle is that it's the same as random, except the cursor remembers what notes it's already played, and it won't play one of those notes again until it's gone through all of the notes you've held down. So let's just have a listen to shuffle. Okay, so it's a little bit less random than what the random one is. It's still got that sort of random feel to it, but you don't get the same sort of density of repeated notes with it. Okay, the next one is walking, and this one is kind of random, but what it does is it will start at a note and then it will play either the next one up or the next one down in the order that you've played them in. So it's chronological. It's not mapped up and down the keyboard. So it's the order that you activate them. Okay, so let's just do it here. I'm going to play. Basically, I'm going to arpeggiate the same chord from lowest to highest. So. So it's a bit like a crazy scale. Basically, it goes up and it will go up and down, but it sort of weaves its way, so you're always playing adjacent notes to it. It actually sounds really, really good through delays, and it's a technique that guitarists use a lot with delays. Is that sort of similar thing? You sort of play and then you have an offbeat delay, so you set your delay up on 3/8 notes and you're playing on sort of quarter notes, so you get all these things in between, but it sounds really good when you're doing this sort of moving up and down. So a little hint for you there. Okay, the next one you've got is simultaneous. I've put the chords up there. Basically, this just plays chords, so it's okay. So it's just nice, simple sort of power chords that are on that on the beats there. Okay, just a reminder, guys, if you've got any questions, just throw them up on the chat there. There's nothing yet, so perhaps I'm doing a good job. So let's see how we go. So the next one that we've got, okay, that is all of them. Okay, I thought there were some extra ones here. Okay. Alright, so that basically what we've done there, guys. Let me just bring you back. So basically what we've done there is we've gone through this this play order section here. Okay, and the other one, what you've got is these limit options, and this defines what happens when it gets to the edges of your arpeggio. So we'll quickly run through them. I haven't gone into these in a lot of detail. There's a lot of stuff in the manual about these. So let's just put I'll put 12 semitones here and a shift limit 24. So the limit options here are to stop. So what's going to happen is it's going to play through 2 octaves and then it's going to stop. Alright, nice and simple. Reset. This is what you're probably used to if you use an old analog synth that's got an arpeggiator on it. It goes through, it plays up until it hits the shift limit, then it comes back to the start. So now this is quite useful. So if we set this, let's say we set this to 7, this is where you're going to realise it. Basically, once it hits that, once it's gone up 2 octaves, it'll come back. So okay, so it always comes back and starts on the same root note that you started on. So in that case, I was playing the C chord. It'll come back to that C note. Okay, at the start. It's important to remember because some of these other ones don't. Unipolar, for example, what happens here is when it hits, so we're playing a C. Once it hits a C 2 octaves above, it folds it around. So if the next note it was going to play was going to be a D, it would actually fold it around and actually play the B below the C. Or if it was going to play the E, it would play the A below the C. So it works out how many semitones above the shift limit it would have gone to, and then it mirrors it and brings it back down, and then it continues that arpeggiator back down the keyboard until it hits the other shift limit. It does the same thing. It works out how much it would have overshot it by, and then it wraps it around. So we'll just have a play with this. Okay, so that's 7. So if we put it on 8, you'll hear it differently. Okay, so that's unipolar. Bipolar, it will go below. It'll go down 2 octaves below as well as going 2 octaves up. So just play that. And down. Okay, so that's so we can do, let's do 5. Okay, and you hear how that's always changing, so it can be quite useful, and this is again where you can get some of these creative uses. So the next one is float reset. What this does is it goes up the keyboard till it hits the shift limit, works out how many notes over the shift limit the next note would be, and then it scales it back down the keyboard to start again. So if it would normally play, say if you play the C, E, G at C4 and it gets to the C6 and then the next note it wants to play is the E6, what it will then do is come back down to the bottom end again. So let's just have a listen to that. So it works out how many notes beyond it would go, and then it brings that back down to the bottom end. So on sevenths and that you get something quite interesting. But if we went to 12, it would just sound the same as the reset. Okay, so the next one is float unipolar. Again, this works pretty well, the same as let's just have this. I just want to get this right for you guys. It basically uses the same concept and applies it to the unipolar mode. So when it reaches the shift limit, it calculates the difference between the next note and the limit and transposes the next cycle of notes down by that interval. Okay, so rather than so rather than just going down and resetting to the new pitch, it sort of folds it. So it does the fold and then it pulls it back down. So let's just have a play with that. Okay, and then the last one that we've got is float bipolar, which does the same thing but on a bipolar way. So it works out what it does at the limit and it brings it back to sort of wrap it around. So yeah, so basically what it does is, I'll just read straight from the manual here. Float bipolar is similar to float unipolar, but the downward shift limit isn't the original pitch, it's a negative of the shift limit value. Okay? Okay, so basically what it does is this uses the shift limits and it calculates the difference between what the next note should be in the shift limit to calculate what the next note's going to be. Okay, and then it repeats the pattern back down. Okay, so basically there's quite a bit of creativity that can be used by varying these notes or varying these different parameters here and doing some stuff with it in terms of making the arpeggiators very quite interesting. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is we'll go on to the ARP 2 page and we're going to have a look at a few of these other parameters. So the next one we're going to look at is the latch mode, which is up here on the left. You've got keys. Okay, it's on the second page. So let's have a look at the different options that you've got for these latch modes. Is this the one that's got... Okay, there's some extra ones in here that again weren't on my thing, but again it's pretty easy to work out. So let's just have a look at the latch mode for you guys. Okay, so what we've got here is the first one that we've got is keys. Okay, now what this does is that it only latches notes while you're holding keys down. Okay, so when you release your keys, your arpeggiator stops playing. So that's just what we've been playing with here. So I put my notes down and I release. Okay, and it stops. Alright, the next one that we've got is called Overplay. Okay, and I just want to make this just gonna make this window a little bit bigger so I can see so I can read it properly. I'm going to upload all these slides onto Kunker so that you guys are going to be able to see them pretty easily there in a lot more clarity than what you can see on the stream. But Overplay only latches notes held when the latch, which is MIDI CC157, turns on. Okay, so what you need to do to use this is that you need to assign a controller to MIDI 157. Okay, and you can do that within the setup mode. So let me just show you. We'll just assign a switch to it. So let me just show you how you do that. So we'll go to switch. Okay, and we'll go to was it 157? Okay, so latch. On values 127 and 157. Okay, so this only works when it's above 64, it's on. When it's below 64, it's off. Okay, so we'll have a play with this and we'll show you how this works. Okay, so I'm going to hold down some notes, then I'm going to hit hit the latch, and then I'm going to release the notes, and then I'm going to play some other notes above it. Okay, so whoops. Okay, and I can play other notes on the same channel without affecting things. Okay, and the only way to let these notes off is to let the latch off, so you have to unlatch those notes manually. So, so that's the way that's essentially the way that the overplay works. Okay, so notes that are played after the latch has been engaged don't get added to the ARP. Okay, so that's the way the overplay. So you can basically set a arpeggiator going. So hold down a chord, engage latch, or you can. I think you can. No, you need while you're holding the keys down, you need to engage latch. So it doesn't necessarily need to be the notes on the keyboard. It could be sent over MIDI. So this is true for all of the arpeggiator stuff. You can send it over MIDI, and the arpeggiator will work. Okay, the same as if you're holding the keys down. Okay, so that's overplay. The next one is called arpegg, or I don't know, arpeggiate, or I don't know, but it's written as arpegg in the on the keyboard. Now, what this one does, it's a combination of keys and overplay. So basically, it acts exactly the same as overplay, except that after latch is on, the new notes in the ARP range get added to the ARP only while those keys are down. Okay, so let's try that again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play the C chord, latch it, and then I'm going to play the C chord an octave above, and then I'll let that go, so you'll be able to hear how it goes. So, and then I'll release that, and it just goes back to that original one. Okay, and then again you release latch to let that one off. Okay, and the next one you've got is add, and it's exactly the same as arpegg, except that new notes are also latched to the existing arpeggio. So again, what we're going to do is play the original C chord, then I'm going to play an octave above, and I'll release it straight away, and you'll hear that those new notes will get latched to the old one. So here's the first notes, and here goes the second ones. And look, no hands. Okay, again, you need to release latch to let those notes off. Okay, so so there's a little note down there. MIDI CC 157 is the key that you need to that turns it on and off. And you can assign. I've just assigned it to switch, but you can. In fact, the Kurzweil manual suggests that you assign them to the pedals, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit in a second because there's actually a special controller for the sustain pedal. But let's have a listen to the next one, auto, which is an arpeggio, and as long as one note is held down, it latches, it keeps all the notes latched that you play. Okay, so I can play that normal C chord, so I'll just hold down the C key and I'll add some more notes to it. And then I'll release the C key, and it all goes off, and you can start again. Okay, so that's how auto works. The next mode is pedals, and this is a bit of a complex mode, and what it's designed around is using both of the pedals, or you need two controllers. You need controller 157 and controller 158. 158 is called latch 2, and 157 is called latch. Okay, and I've got a little table there which basically tells you how it operates. So you've got two states for each of the two controllers. Basically, if you've got latch 2 on, it works in, oh, pardon me, it works in add mode. If you've got it off, it depends on whether latch 1 is on or off. So if it's off, it acts like keys mode. If it's on, it acts like overplay mode. So basically, using the two foot pedals, you can go between the 3 different modes, okay, quite easily. Now, one thing to bear in mind is that there's another controller, I think it's 160. Let's just have a look. Where are we? I think it's called 160. Yeah, and it's called sus latch. Now what this does is, again, I'm going to read this just straight from the manual because it's actually, okay, what sustain latch does is that, I'll read it out. Additionally, you could assign one foot switch to sus latch, which is sustain latch, controller 160. Doing this makes the foot switch act as a sustain pedal when ARP is off and as a latch pedal when ARP is on. So if you need to use your sustain pedal while you're just playing normally and then you want to use it as a latch pedal, use number 160 because it means that your foot pedal will act both as a sustain pedal when you need it, and then it will act as a latch pedal when you're arpeggiating. So Kurzweil have sort of done a really nice job with this controller in terms of a playability thing, in terms of using it live. Okay, all right, we'll move on to the next one. The next one's called auto hold. Okay, now auto hold is so just going back to the pedals. The pedals only work manually with the latches, so you need to have one or both of those latches assigned to make it work. Okay, now auto hold is the same as auto, except that the notes are latched when you release the keys. Okay, now whenever you press down new notes, and this is how I'm used to arpeggiators working, and I just about use this mode all the time. So basically when you start a new arpeggio, or you release the keys, you press new keys, and you get a new arpeggio. So just something like this. So okay, and you need to turn the ARP off to get it to stop. Okay, that's the only thing about that. But that's the one I'm used to working with. So that's auto hold. Basically, you hold down the arpeggio, or you press a chord down, and it'll arpeggiate it, and it will keep doing that until you press another arpeggio until you turn it off. Okay, and one note auto. Now there's actually three of these. There's one note auto high, and one note auto low. Okay, and these are designed to be used with riffs. So only with one note auto, only the last note is latched. Okay, so I just played a chord then, and only one note is latched. Okay, and then you've got one note auto low, which will latch the lowest note that you play. And then you've got one note auto high, which will latch the highest note that's played. Okay, now these are useful, basically not at 16th notes, but if you're putting it down on bar, like if you go back to 1-1 as your, so let's just go back and I'll just show you what I'm talking about here. So if you go to ARP 1 and you take these back to 1-1, okay, what will happen is that this will trigger a note every bar, or you can do it on every beat. So basically it's designed around having these bars or a riff repeat or get re-triggered. Okay, so if we set the beats here to 8, okay, it will get re-triggered on every 2 bars. So if we go to 2, it'll get triggered twice a bar. So let's just do that now. Okay, and if we speed that up, okay, it'll get triggered. Oh, okay. Well, the number of beats doesn't seem to have any effect on that. I thought it would. Okay, let me just have a look at this. I just want to double check and just make sure what these beats do then. Okay, I'm just going to read this out of the manual. Number of beats. This affects the syncing of other arpeggiator or riff zones to the current zone, only if those other zones have sync type setting to downbeat or downbeat weight. For those zones being synced to the current zone's arpeggiator, this determines how many notes must be played by the current zone's arpeggiator before a downbeat occurs. Okay, so this number of beats really affects other zones. Okay, I thought it affected this zone, but I was wrong. Okay, it affects other zones. So it's important where you've got a number of zones that have all synced up together with riffs or arpeggios about when they get re-triggered. Alright, so by default it's on 4, but if you want it on 4 bars, you set it to 16. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cover the last slide that I prepared, which is the sync modes, which is this parameter here, which is sync type. Okay, now these are a little bit confusing, and one of my other one of my other tutorials, I glossed over these a little bit and didn't explain much. I wanted to leave this until this tutorial to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to go through and do this again, guys. If you got any questions, let me know. It's pretty quiet up on the chat at the moment. No questions there. So yeah, look, if you got any questions about what we're doing here, just let me know. Okay, if you got any queries, I mean, it doesn't even have to be related to this tutorial. If it's something that I've covered before, let me know and I'll do my best to cover it. I've sort of been preparing for this. So I've got arpeggiators in the mind at the moment. So if you have something a little bit different, I might have to think about it a little bit, but I'll get there. All right, let's go through the sync modes. Okay, there's a lot of questions about this. I get a heap of questions about sync modes because they are a little bit confusing. Alright, the first one that we've got here is none. Okay, and that's really simple because what it means is that the arpeggio doesn't try and sync to anything. So if you've got all your arpeggios on different zones all set to none, they just trigger it whenever you trigger a note on that zone. So they won't sync up, they'll just trigger as soon as you hit a note. Okay, so it's really simple. If you're using just one zone and just arpeggiating like what we're doing, works beautiful. Okay, the next one that we've got there is downbeat, and what this does is it waits for the next beat to trigger. If nothing is playing, it behaves the same as none. So basically, what this allows you to do is set basically a primary zone, or allows the first zone to be triggered, like when you press the keys down, it'll start. Okay, this is useful in a lot of cases where you want to start a song by hitting the keys. In some cases you don't want to do that. You might want to trigger a number of arpeggios at different regions of the keyboard and then get them to start when something else happens. It might be a riff or it might be a song or whatever. So to do that you use any beat wait. So I've got that across to the right. Oh, sorry. The order's a little bit different here. On the PC3 it goes none, downbeat, any beat. So I've just done any beat. So any beat, basically it'll trigger on the next beat. Okay, any beat wait. What it'll do is that it will wait until there is something to sync to, and that's what is set on the sync to parameter, which is just above it, and it can be the first available. You can set it to a specific zone, a specific arpeggiator. You can set it to the first available riff, the first available arpeggiator, and I thought you could set it to song as well, but you can't. Oh yes, you can. Main sequence is the last one, and that's song mode. Okay, so that basically what you can do is you can tell each zone to wait for a particular signal or a particular timing reference to become available before it launches. So you can queue them all up and then hit something, and then they can all start working, and you can sync them into each other and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so the next one you've got is downbeat. What this does is it waits for the next downbeat, and that's what's determined by the number of beats that's below. So if you're syncing this to another arpeggio, and the arpeggio's got, you set the number of beats to 8, it will wait 2 bars, or say you set it to 8 and it's on quarter notes, it will wait 2 bars before it acknowledges its downbeat, and then it will trigger on that. So if you're doing trance or something like that, you probably want to set that to, if you're doing 16th notes, I think you can set it to 32 notes. You probably want to set it to 32 or 16. So 32 is the highest, and so 32 on 16th notes is 2 bars. Okay, so that's often trance and electronic music is written in 2-bar phrases. Sometimes it's written in much longer phrases, up to sort of 8 or 16 bars. But yeah, that's sort of where you can set this, and you can what you can do is you can sort of set an invisible layer that is your timing reference, and so if you need longer phrases than the 32/16 notes, what you could do is you could set one of them that only does it on bars, and then it will wait until it sort of wraps around before it re-triggers. Okay, so that's the main sync types there. So you've got downbeat wait, any beat wait. Okay, and then you've got some other ones here, which is start. Okay, and what start does is it waits for a start signal or a play signal on a sequence or a riff. Okay, you've got loop, which will only trigger on a loop point. So again, it's got to be a loop point for a riff or a loop point for a song. You've then got stop, which means that the arpeggio is going to trigger when something stops. Okay, and that's usually a riff for I think it has to be a riff for a song. I don't think it will. I don't think it will work on the other ones. So let's just have a look here. Yeah, loop, stop, and start are only for a riff for a song. Yep. And that's if it's looped. So you have to have the loop parameter set to on for the loop one to work, for example. Okay, then you've got start wait, which is same sort of philosophy as what the any beat wait and downbeat wait is that it's going to wait for that sync signal. The play, stop, and loop, if there's nothing playing, it will start, and it will basically act as the primary source or the primary timing device, I guess, if you were. Whereas the start wait will, whatever you've set the sync to, it will wait until that's going before it will start that the arpeggiator at that stage. Same thing with loop wait and stop wait. Okay, so that's look, we've gone through hopefully the arpeggiator in sufficient detail there for you guys, and I hopefully I've got rid of a little bit of the mystery about how to program the arpeggios and I guess creative uses. I said I was going to talk about that. I think a lot of the creative uses come about on this page here, and it's really these 4 parameters. Oh, what I haven't done, I haven't covered these shift patterns. Let's quickly have a look at these shift patterns. Okay, what you can do is the shift patterns turn off everything. Okay, or turn off a lot of the parameters. But what you can do is if you press edit on them, you can go in and see. So this is a major one. So if I just press the C button, oh, hang on, better turn it on. Actually, let me just get out of that. I need to set this back, and I need to set this. Okay. Okay, and that's minor. Okay, and you can see what these patterns look like within here. So this is what you can program these. These can be up to, I think they can be up to 64 steps, 48 steps long. God knows why they didn't make it 64, 128 steps. It would have made a lot more sense. But anyway, I think they can go up to 48 steps. And but there's a whole bunch of preset ones, and you can make your own. Okay, so there's heaps of them. Okay, so this is where you can program your own. Turned on, so and you can actually build songs out of these arpeggios. Now, one really cool thing about the PC3 and where this can get really creative is that you can assign controllers to change your shift pattern in real time. So you can have buttons that move between these shift patterns in real time. So you can be playing one, and then you can press a button and it will play another one. in that way you can really start setting the PC3 up as sort of a phrase sequencer. I have experimented with this a little bit, and I can't remember the limitation I had, but I don't think there's a way that you can, when you shift the patterns, I don't think there's a way that you can make it wait for a loop point to start it again. So it's not a true phrase sequencer, but you can do a lot of really creative things with this. You can have subtle changes in arpeggios just by shifting these shift patterns. And as you can see in some of these, is you can set some of these steps to none so that they don't actually trigger it. And you can do that either in the shift pattern or you can do it in the velocity pattern. So you've got this, and then you've got these velocity patterns here as well, which is exactly the same sort of thing. You've got all these different patterns. Now these can be different lengths, so what you can do is that you can have one of them does mutes and another one doesn't. So if we let's just find one here that's got mutes on it. Alright, this one here's got some mutes. Okay, so if we go back to this one here, turn this on. So essentially what we've got here is, instead of basically what you've got is you've got a 3-note arpeggio, and you've got a I don't know how many notes this is. There's 24 steps in that pattern, okay? But when you combine the two of them, because different things overlap in different places, your arpeggio now is really, really complex and long. So by using these two things together, you can create a lot of movement and a lot of variety from two very simple patterns. Okay, so and again, the velocity pattern also you can change in real time by assigning controllers to it. And there's two controller sources. So if we just go back, and I'll just go and have a look at this. Where's the switch here? So if we go, I think they are up here. Yeah, so you've got these ARP shift pattern, bank, velocity pattern. So you can set banks of, you can do a lot of them, because you can set the bank number and also the velocity number, and you can change, like, all these are able to be controlled. So you can set sliders or controllers to these different parameters, and you can control these arpeggiators in real time in a very, very powerful way. So I'm not going to go into the different ways you can expand these, because I'd be here forever doing it, because there's so many options that you've got with arpeggios on this thing in terms of being able to control these things in real time, making them change, making them morph, making them have variety on them. So by using 8 controllers and the different options for the arpeggios, you've got one very, very powerful arpeggiator, and you can do this on every single zone, and they can all be different. So you can have, if you're into like a lot of pattern-based music and stuff, you can really use the arpeggiators to in a very creative way. Okay, what was I talking about before that? Oh yeah, some of the creative uses. So most of it is focused around these parameters here, these 4 parameters, and what you can do with them all. So you've got so many creative ways that you can make these arpeggios form patterns and to do things for you. Look, I'm going to wrap it up pretty shortly. We've gone for nearly the hour. I was going to try and get this out of the way a lot quicker than this, but we've covered a lot of ground. Hopefully I've dispelled a little bit of the mystery behind the arpeggios, and you've got a much better understanding now about the power of them and how to use them. They're not something to be scared of. You just go in and, like, you can get creative things just by going in and just putting random values and stuff, and just holding down an arpeggiator and just sort of seeing where it takes you, because you can create these, particularly if you've got things like bells and a pad sitting behind it, you can create or a sort of a sustained sort of pad sound that you retrigger. You can create these beautiful, almost like pieces of music, or almost like algorithmic music, just by using the arpeggios. And it's really, I find it really, it's quite a tactile interface, because you can play keys and the whole keyboard just comes alive, and everything is in tune, and it all works with the keys all over the, like, whatever chords you play, and then you can just change it, and the whole character of that piece just changes. So you can use these almost as a songwriting tool within themselves. There are a few limitations on it, and unfortunately, Kurzweil haven't quite fleshed this out quite as much as I would have liked, because you do a few more things and you could actually turn this into a supremely powerful phrase synth. But hopefully I'll get hold of the R&D guys and twist their ears a little bit, see if we can get something built into the PC3 later, or hopefully into one of their future products. But anyway, guys, I'm going to sign off now. I've just about run out of tape in any case. Thanks for joining me. This will be up on YouTube within pretty soon. I'm going to try and get the video edited down. Fingers crossed that everything got captured beautifully. And finally, eventually these will go out to the public as well. So the Mahogany Room members are going to get these things first. So there's a little bit of just to say thank you for joining up and supporting the Kunker forums. And then, but I want everybody to be able to learn from these things, so they're going to go out to the public. So, guys, again, if you wanna help out or show your support, there's a few things you can do. Look, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can like the video. There's a chip in that I've set up to cover the cost of the software and the cameras and that I've had to buy to do these things. If you want to throw some financial support, or and if you've already got Bravo, if you don't have Bravo and you want to do some financial support, grab it. It's $20 Aussie, and yeah, you get something back for it that way. So look, guys, thanks heaps for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this video and got something out of it. And until next time, I'm going to say, see you later.